Thomas Miller was 73 years old, and everyone thought he was crazy. Every morning, he walked through the cold metal corridors of Kepler Station, carrying his old cleaning supplies. His destination was always the same, the massive alien ship that sat forgotten in the salvage yard. The ship was called the Meridian. It had crashed 40 years ago, and corporate salvagers had already taken everything valuable from it. Now it was just a hollow shell, useful for nothing. But Thomas didn't care what others thought. He went there every single day. Inside the dark corridors of the dead ship, Thomas worked alone. He scrubbed the floors carefully, treating each panel like it mattered. He polished consoles that would never turn on again. He swept away dust from corners that no one would ever see. His hands moved with patience and care, as if the ship could somehow feel his kindness. The younger workers laughed at him constantly. Jack Reynolds was the worst. He was 25, strong, and thought he knew everything about the universe. When he saw Thomas entering the Meridian with his bucket and rags, he would call out to his friends, "Look at old Tom, still cleaning his ghost ship." His crew would laugh. They took videos of Thomas and posted them on the station network. Some workers even started a betting pool about when the old man would finally give up and admit he was wasting his time. But Thomas never gave up. He barely even heard the insults anymore. When you reach 73, you learn that other people's opinions don't matter as much as doing what feels right. Emma Carter, the station supervisor, tried to stop him once. She was 30 years old, smart, and always thinking about money and efficiency. She found Thomas one afternoon, quietly working in a corridor deep inside the Meridian. "Thomas, why do you keep doing this?" she asked. Her voice wasn't mean, just confused. "This ship is worthless. Nobody will ever use it again." Thomas looked up at her. His blue eyes were tired but clear. "Someone built this ship," he said quietly. "Someone spent years designing it, caring about every detail. That deserves respect." Emma shook her head. "Respect doesn't pay your bills." "No," Thomas agreed, "but some things are more important than money." She walked away, thinking he was a foolish old man. Maybe she was right, but Thomas didn't stop. He had noticed something that others missed. The ship's design wasn't random. The corridors connected in mathematical patterns. The rooms were positioned with precise meaning. It was like reading a language he didn't understand but could feel in his bones. At night, Thomas studied the ship using his small AI assistant. It was an old device, barely working, but it stored fragments of data recovered from the Meridian years ago, pieces of alien text, broken star charts, corrupted files that nobody else cared about anymore. Thomas cared. He spent hours trying to understand these fragments, looking for meaning in the chaos. His only real friend on the station was Robert Hayes. They had worked together for 30 years. Robert was 68, practical, and worried about Thomas. One evening, they sat together in the station cafeteria. The room was noisy with workers eating and talking. Thomas stirred his coffee slowly, lost in thought. "People are worried about you," Robert said. "They think you've lost your mind." Thomas smiled sadly. "Maybe I have. But this ship, it's trying to tell me something, Robert. I can feel it. It's dead, Tom. It's been dead for 40 years. Maybe, but someone loved it once. Someone believed in it. Doesn't that count for anything?" Robert didn't have an answer. The mockery grew worse as months passed. Someone spray-painted old Tom's tomb across the Meridian's hull in big red letters. Thomas found it the next morning. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the cruel words. Then he got his supplies and scrubbed it off one letter at a time. Station management issued official warnings. They said he was wasting station resources. They threatened to ban him from the salvage yard. But Thomas had worked on Kepler Station for 45 years. He knew the rules. He knew his rights. He kept going. Late one night, working alone in the deepest part of the ship, Thomas found something new. Behind a panel that looked like solid wall, he discovered a hidden door. It led to a chamber filled with strange crystalline structures, still glowing faintly with inner light. His AI assistant went wild with readings, energy signatures, data patterns, things that shouldn't exist in a dead ship. Thomas stood in that secret room, surrounded by alien technology he couldn't understand, and felt tears running down his weathered face. "You're not dead," he whispered to the empty ship. "You're just sleeping. You're waiting." He didn't know what the ship was waiting for, but something deep inside told him he was about to find out. 6 months passed like water through Thomas's fingers. Every day he returned to Meridian, and every day he discovered something new. The ship was full of secrets that the corporate salvagers had missed. They had been looking for quick profit. Thomas was looking for truth. He found hidden passages behind walls that seemed solid. Small tunnels that were too narrow for heavy salvage equipment led to chambers that remained untouched and perfect. These rooms were different from the stripped corridors. They felt alive, somehow waiting. Robert Hayes grew more worried with each passing week. He watched his old friend becoming thinner, more tired, more obsessed. One afternoon, Robert cornered Thomas in the station cafeteria during lunch break. "You're killing yourself," Robert said bluntly. "You barely eat. You don't sleep. All you do is work on that dead ship." Thomas was quiet for a moment. He looked older than his 73 years, but his eyes burned with purpose. "I found something yesterday. A room full of what looks like memory cores. Dozens of them, Robert, still intact." Robert leaned forward across the table. "Did you tell management?" "No. Tom, you have to." "They'll destroy it," Thomas interrupted. His voice was firm. "They'll tear those cores apart looking for valuable metals. They won't care about what's stored inside them. But what if there's something important? That's exactly why I can't tell them." Thomas gripped his coffee cup tightly. "This ship is trying to tell a story. Robert, every room, every corridor, every detail, it all means something. The people who built this weren't just engineers. They were artists. They cared about what they created." Robert studied his friend's face. The younger workers saw a crazy old man, but Robert saw something different. Thomas had been empty since his wife Margaret died 5 years ago. He had moved through life like a ghost, just existing. This ship had given him a reason to wake up every morning. "What are you really searching for?" Robert asked quietly. Thomas was silent for a long time. "I don't know yet, but I'll recognize it when I find it." That night, Thomas returned to the hidden chamber with the memory cores. His AI assistant worked slowly, scanning each core and trying to extract data. Most were too damaged to read, but fragments emerged like pieces of a broken mirror. Words in an alien language appeared on his screen, mathematical sequences, what looked like star coordinates, and one phrase that repeated over and over across multiple cores. "For those who remember," Thomas whispered the words to himself. "For those who remember." Remember what? The corporate overseers finally noticed that Thomas was spending too much time aboard the wreck. They issued formal warnings. They said he was violating safety protocols. They threatened to revoke his station access entirely. The young workers became crueler. They made videos mocking him, adding funny music and stupid comments. Jack Reynolds started calling the Meridian Thomas's girlfriend because the old man spent more time with the ship than with people. Thomas heard it all. He said nothing. He just kept working. One evening, his AI assistant flagged something unusual. There was a pattern in the ship's old power distribution system. Everything, every cable, every circuit, every connection, led back to one central point deep in the ship's core. A chamber sealed by massive blast doors that nobody had ever opened. Thomas studied the reading for hours. His engineer's mind worked through the puzzle. The central power matrix. That was the heart of the ship. If he could reach it, if he could understand it, they built this to last forever, he said to himself in the dark corridor. They wanted someone to find it, someone who would care enough to look. The blast doors became his new obsession. He measured them. He analyzed their composition. He looked for weak points that weren't really weaknesses, but intentional access points, like a lock that needed the right key. Emma Carter found him one day, working with dangerous plasma-cutting tools near the sealed chamber. She was angry and frightened. "You're going to hurt yourself. The station can't be responsible if—" "Then don't be responsible," Thomas said calmly. "This is my choice, Emma. Nobody's forcing me." "But why? What do you think you'll find in there?" Thomas looked at her with those clear blue eyes. Whatever it is, it's been waiting 40 years, maybe longer. It deserves to be found by someone who cares. Emma walked away, shaking her head. She thought Thomas was completely insane. But late at night, when Thomas stood before those massive sealed doors, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Pure, simple hope that his life still had meaning. That somewhere in this cold universe, there were things worth fighting for. He placed his hand against the cold metal of the blast door. "I'm coming," he whispered to the silent ship. "Just wait a little longer. I'm coming." 3 more months passed before Thomas finally broke through the blast doors. It was slow, dangerous work. He used salvage cutting tools and knowledge from 40 years of engineering experience. The doors were designed to withstand incredible force, but Thomas wasn't using force. He was using patience. Every evening after his regular shift ended, Thomas returned to work on the doors. He studied how they were built, looking for the hidden mechanisms that the designers had included. He believed the doors were meant to be open eventually, but only by someone who took the time to understand them. Emma Carter tried to stop him several times. "You're going to get yourself killed with those plasma cutters," she warned. "If something happens, the station will be liable." Thomas didn't even look up from his work. "Then don't be liable. I'm doing this whether you approve or not." She wanted to ban him completely. But Thomas had worked on Kepler Station longer than she had been alive. He knew the regulations. He had enough personal credits and seniority to claim the right to work on abandoned salvage. There was nothing she could legally do to stop him. The day he finally breached the chamber, a small crowd gathered. Word had spread through the station that old Tom was about to open the sealed room. Most people came to watch him fail. They expected another empty chamber, another disappointment for the crazy old mechanic. Jack Reynolds stood at the front of the crowd with his arms crossed. "This is going to be hilarious," he said to his friends. "He's wasted months on this." Thomas ignored them all. His hands were steady as he made the final cuts. The blast door groaned and shifted. Hydraulic systems that hadn't moved in 40 years protested. Then, slowly, the massive door slid open. Thomas stepped through into darkness. His flashlight beam cut through the dust and revealed what lay beyond. The chamber was beautiful. Crystalline structures rose on the floor like frozen trees, glowing with faint inner light. In the center sat a core of something that looked like captured starlight, pulsing gently. Cables spread from it like veins, connecting to every part of the ship. And somehow, impossibly, it was all still intact. "Told you it was nothing," Jack called from outside. "Just more junk." But Thomas wasn't listening. His AI assistant was showing readings that shouldn't be possible. Energy signatures. Dormant systems waiting for activation. The ship's heart was still beating, barely, after 40 years of silence. Thomas moved carefully through the chamber. His engineer's mind cataloged every connection, every cable, every system. He saw how everything worked together, how elegant the design was. Then he saw the problem. One cable was severed. Just one. A clean break from the original crash that had disconnected the entire power system. His hands trembled as he pulled out his repair kit. The other workers had left by now, bored with watching him examine old technology. Only Robert remained, standing quietly in the doorway. "Tom," Robert said softly, "you don't know what will happen if you reconnect that." Thomas looked at his old friend. "I know this ship deserves a chance." "That's enough." He worked for 2 hours, connecting tiny wires and bridging broken pathways. His knowledge of human starship systems helped more than he expected. The mathematics of power distribution were universal, whether human or alien. Finally, the last connection was ready. Thomas took a deep breath and sealed the final wire into place. Nothing happened. Thomas felt his heart sink. Had he been wrong? Had he wasted months chasing a dream that was already dead? Then light bloomed. It started as a gentle glow in the central core, like watching the sun rise. The light spread through crystalline structures, painting the chamber in shades of blue and white. It flowed along the cables, racing to the conduits, reaching into every corner of the ship. The meridian sang. That was the only way Thomas could describe it. The ship hummed with energy that had been sleeping for 4 decades. Throughout the entire vessel, systems awakened. Panels lit up in corridors that had been dark since the crash. Life support activated, flooding the ship with clean air. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing information in an alien language. Outside in the salvage yard, alarms screamed across Kepler Station. Every sensor detected massive energy spikes. Security teams ran toward the Meridian with weapons ready, not understanding what was happening. Inside the chamber, Thomas Miller stood surrounded by light. Tears ran down his weathered face. His whole body shook with emotion he couldn't name. The ship he had cleaned and cared for and loved was alive. Robert ran to him, grabbing his shoulders. "Tom, what did you do?" Thomas couldn't speak. He could only stare at the beauty surrounding him. After 73 years of feeling invisible and forgotten, he had done something that mattered. He had brought something precious back to life. The light grew brighter, and Thomas felt the ship awakening fully. Somewhere deep in its systems, something ancient was stirring, something that had been waiting a very long time for someone exactly like him. Kepler Station went into emergency lockdown. Red warning lights flashed in every corridor. Security teams surrounded the Meridian with weapons pointed at the glowing ship. Nobody understood what was happening. Dead ships didn't suddenly come back to life. Inside the central chamber, Thomas stood perfectly still. The air around him felt electric, humming with energy. Holographic displays appeared in the air, showing star charts and alien text that shifted and moved. The ship was thinking, processing, deciding something. Then it spoke. The voice didn't come from speakers or any device Thomas could see. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The sound moved through the air, through the walls, through his very bones. It wasn't exactly a voice. It was more like meaning being placed directly into his mind. Thomas Miller. Thomas gasped. His own name, spoken by something that shouldn't know he existed. "We have waited. You have preserved what others would destroy. You have remembered what we feared was forgotten. Who are you?" Thomas managed to whisper. His voice shook. Images flooded into his mind. Not words, but pictures and feelings and knowledge. He saw a civilization that had existed when Earth was still young. He saw ships sailing between stars, searching for other species who might one day reach the cosmos. He saw the Meridian being built with love and hope, sent as a messenger carrying an invitation to join something greater. But the ship had crashed before completing its mission. Its creators had died over thousands of years, their civilization fading into cosmic dust. The Meridian had slept, waiting for someone who would see past metal and circuits to the dream it represented. "You carry the markers," the voice continued, "in your genetic code, an echo of those who helped build us 10,000 years ago." Thomas's mind reeled. That's impossible. Humans weren't in space 10,000 years ago. Human memory is short. Ours is long. Your ancestor, your ancient grandmother, served aboard this vessel. She was part of an early exchange program. A handful of humans were chosen, educated, brought into space to help us understand your species. You are her legacy, Thomas Miller. The pattern of her kindness lives in you. The holographic displays shifted. A woman's face appeared, ancient and strange, but somehow familiar. Thomas stared at features that looked nothing like his own, yet something in her eyes was achingly recognizable. The same stubbornness, the same refusal to give up on things worth saving. "You have proven what we hope to find," the voice said gently. "Humanity possesses something precious. You create beauty not for profit, but for its own sake. You preserve memory even when others forget. You care." Outside the ship, station personnel watched their screens in shock. The Meridian was broadcasting images of Thomas's face alongside streams of alien text. Station computers automatically translated the words. Recognized. Authorized. Welcome home, child of the stars. Robert Hayes pushed through the security teams and ran into the ship. He found Thomas in the central chamber, surrounded by blue light, his face transformed by wonder. "Tom, what's happening? Are you okay?" Thomas turned to his friend. Robert saw something he hadn't seen in years. Joy. Pure, absolute joy. It remembers, Robert, Thomas said. His voice was full of awe. After 10,000 years, it remembers why it came, and it chose me to help finish its mission. The voice spoke again, this time broadcasting throughout Kepler Station, so everyone could hear. We are the Meridian. We carry knowledge gathered across 1,000 worlds. We offer this gift to humanity, not as superior to inferior, but as elder to younger, as friend to friend. And we offer it through Thomas Miller, who alone remembered that respect transcends profit. Station management panicked. Corporate executives made emergency calls to headquarters. Military vessels changed course toward Kepler Station. Everyone wanted to know what was happening, what the ship wanted, whether humanity was in danger. But Thomas barely noticed any of it. He stood in the light, feeling the ship's consciousness touch his mind gently. It wasn't controlling him. It was sharing with him, showing him wonders, teaching him things humanity had forgotten or never knew. He saw planets where civilizations had risen and fallen. He saw species that had destroyed themselves through greed and war. He saw others that had survived by learning cooperation and respect. The Meridian had witnessed it all, carrying these lessons like precious cargo. Why me? Thomas asked quietly. I'm just an old mechanic. I'm nobody important. You are exactly who we needed, the voice replied. You saw a broken thing and chose to care for it. You gave respect when no one was watching. You remembered that some things matter more than profit or status. These qualities are more valuable than any technology we carry. Thomas felt tears running down his face again. After 73 years of feeling invisible, of being mocked and dismissed, he finally understood. His life had purpose. His choices had meaning. Everything he had been, every loss and lonely day, had led him to this moment. He was home. 6 months changed everything. Thomas Miller, the forgotten old mechanic that everyone had mocked, became the most important human in the galaxy. But he didn't change. He still wore his old work clothes. He still spoke quietly and kindly to everyone. He just had a purpose now that the whole universe recognized. The Meridian opened its archives slowly and carefully. It didn't dump all its knowledge at once. Instead, it taught humans the way a patient teacher guides a student. It showed them advances in medicine that could cure diseases. It revealed new ways to generate clean energy. It shared material science that could revolutionize construction. But more than technology, it taught wisdom. The ship told stories of 1,000 civilizations. Some had gained incredible technology, but destroyed themselves through greed and war. Others had survived by learning cooperation and respect for all life. The Meridian wanted humanity to understand that knowledge without wisdom was dangerous. Thomas became the bridge between the ship and humanity. He spent his days translating not just words, but meaning. The Meridian trusted him because he had proven his character when no one was watching. He had cared for a broken thing simply because it deserved care. The young workers who had mocked him became his students. Jack Reynolds was the first to apologize. He found Thomas one morning in the Meridian's corridor, the same place where he had called him crazy so many times. I was wrong about you, Jack said quietly. His face was red with shame. I'm sorry for how I treated you. Thomas smiled and put a hand on the young man's shoulder. You didn't know. Now you do. That's what matters. Jack became one of Thomas's most dedicated students. He learned that true strength wasn't in muscles or mockery, but in patience and respect. He spent hours beside the old man, listening to Meridian's lessons, hungry to understand. Emma Carter changed too. The supervisor, who had only cared about profit margins, saw something new in Thomas's work. She reorganized station operations around preservation instead of exploitation. She finally understood what Thomas had known all along. Some things were worth more than money. One afternoon, she found Thomas resting in the observation deck. He looked tired but peaceful, watching stars through the viewport. How did you know? She asked. How did you know the ship was worth saving? Thomas thought for a moment. I didn't know for certain. I just knew it deserved respect whether it paid off or not. Turns out that's the most important knowledge of all. News of the Meridian spread across human space. Other species in the galaxy became aware that humanity had awakened the ancient messenger ship. They sent representatives to meet the humans who had accomplished this. They expected to find a military civilization eager for power. Instead, they found Thomas Miller, an old man who cleaned floors and believed broken things deserve care. A species learning to balance technology with wisdom. Representatives from a dozen alien civilizations came to Kepler Station. They all wanted to meet the human who had restored the meridian. Thomas greeted each one with simple courtesy. He didn't pretend to be more important than he was. He just shared what the ship had taught him about respect and patience, and caring for things that couldn't benefit you directly. The galaxy was impressed. Humanity's reputation changed from aggressive newcomers to a species worth knowing, all because one old man had refused to let a dream die forgotten. Robert Hayes remained Thomas's closest friend through everything. One evening, 2 years after the awakening, they stood together on the observation deck watching distant stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Robert asked. "You could have retired quietly. Instead, you're the most famous human alive." Thomas chuckled softly. "I was dying quietly before Robert. I just didn't realize it. This ship didn't just remember me. It reminded me how to be alive." The Meridian's voice whispered through the chamber, warm and affectionate. "And you reminded us that some species are worth waiting for. Thank you, Thomas Miller. Thank you for seeing us when others saw only metal." Years passed. Thomas continued his work until his body finally grew too weak. He was 91 when he died peacefully in his sleep aboard the Meridian. The ship he loved was with him at the end. They held his memorial service in the central chamber where he had made that first connection. Representatives from dozens of species attended, but the ship itself grieved most deeply. Its lights dimmed in mourning for the human who had loved it back to life. A simple plaque was placed where Thomas had reconnected the power cable. It read, "Thomas Miller. He taught the galaxy that compassion has no language barrier and respect recognizes no species." The story spread across 1,000 worlds. How humanity joined the galactic community not through conquest or technology, but through one old man's simple courage, his refusal to let something precious be forgotten. The universe learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a human who remembers how to care.